بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Today we will be discussing about how should the Qurbani meat and skin be distributed. So the focus and the emphasis will be on the distribution. So we've slaughtered the animal, we've received the animal on our doorstep. Now what should we do with the animal meat and the skin? Now, since we've slaughtered in the name of Allah, and hopefully Allah will accept it, but He's allowed us to consume from it. So now if we want, we may keep the meat, the skin, the bones, the fat, the hide of the animal, even the rope with which it was fastened to, for our own personal use. So we may eat the meat, we may be able to tan the skin and use it for different purposes, or the bones, or the fat, or we can give to whomsoever we wish. And sometimes that's what happens. We distribute it amongst family members, relatives, neighbors, people of the community. Now they could be rich or poor, Muslim or non-Muslim. It's fine, it could be given to anyone. However, as we said in the previous session, it is mustahab, preferable, to divide it into 3 portions. One for your own household, one for family and friends, and the last third for the poor and needy. But if a person wants to keep the entire animal to himself and the entire meat, then that's fine as well. However, it is impermissible to give any part of the animal, whether it's the meat, whether it's the bone, whether it's the hide, the fat, as a form of payment. Neither the meat nor the skin or any part of the animal can be given as a payment in exchange for the service. And this is the custom in some places, wherein there'll be an individual who is assigned to sacrifice the animal. So as part of his wages and salary, he'll be told, this is the animal, slaughter this animal, and you can take the fat, you may take the skin, you may take the bones. And this is quite highly valuable for some people who may then take this and make use of it. That will not be valid. However, if any part of the animal should not have been sold, but if it is sold, then the money and the income received therefrom should be given in sadaqah to the poor and needy. Such poor and needy who are entitled to receive zakah. Now this cannot be used for any other purpose, even for a masjid or madrasa or any charitable cause, but to the poor and needy who are entitled to receive zakat. Again, this is quite important because sometimes we may just assign someone to slaughter the animal on our behalf, and we don't see the tail, we don't see the skin, we don't see the hide, we don't see the bones, we just receive the meat at our doorstep. Now what's happening to the skin? What happens to the hide? What's happened to the rope? We don't have a clue, and sometimes we're totally neglectful of it. It may well be that the slaughterer, the individual who slaughtered the animal, may then take this and sell it to another company and make some money for themselves. That would be invalid. Again, to the point we made the other lesson and session, it's important we know the masail, and similarly to whom we have assigned the task must know that it's impermissible for them to do so. Not will they only be violating the right of the animal, the Qurbani animal, but it will affect our faridah, our obligation. Furthermore, it is impermissible to consume the meat from the Qurbani performed after the days of Qurbani, or due to jinayah, or vow promise, or on behalf of a deceased per his request, bequest. So what we just covered previously is that if it's a standard Qurbani animal, then it's fine. The person himself may be able to consume from it, that's no problem. But there are different categories of animals. If slaughtered, it's not permissible for us to consume, but the meat should be given to the poor and the needy. And the examples are, if a person failed to perform Qurbani within the days of Qurbani, 10, 11, 12, and thereafter offers the animal or slaughters the animal, then it will be invalid for him, it will be impermissible for him to eat from it, or any of the rich people. The meat should be and must be given to the poor and needy. Similarly, if a person has gone for the ritual of Hajj, and for example, they covered their face or they covered their head for a long duration, more than 12 hours or so, and there is a dam, a jinaya, they must slaughter an animal. Now, since this animal is to be sacrificed in exchange for a penalty, it's not permissible for him to consume from a meat or any rich people, but the meat should be given to the poor and needy. Similarly, someone made a promise, a vow, that if such and such a thing happens, then they vow to perform a Qurbani. Then if it does happen and they do happen to slaughter the animal, it's not permissible for them to eat from it. It must be given to the poor and needy. And if there was a person nearing death and made a bequest, wasiyah, that after I die, I want an animal to be slaughtered on behalf of myself and the reward to be extended, then if the animal is slaughtered, the meat must be given to the poor and needy. So this meat must be distributed to the poor and needy. And it's not permissible for the person himself to consume it, nor can you give it to a rich person. If he does happen to consume it because he never knew the mas'ala, or he did give it to a rich person, then the money equivalent to the animal must be given in sadaqah. However, it is permissible for all, the rich and the poor, to consume the meat of the animal sacrifice on behalf of the deceased. That's when the deceased did not make a wasiyah. They did not make a bequest. It's the family members, the siblings, the brothers, the sisters, the young children, the nephews, nieces, or parents wanted to do isalu thawab, extend the reward to the marhumin, the deceased. So it was the days of Dhul Hijjah. They assume, why don't we just slaughter an animal and give the reward to our deceased? That's fine. That's totally valid. Now it will be permissible for them to consume from that meat as well. If a person on whom Qurbani was compulsory dies during the days of sacrifice, i.e. either on the 10th or 11th or before the sunset of 12th, then if the person had not made Qurbani yet, then Qurbani is not necessary. And therefore, even if he's in his last moments before he dies, he's not obliged to make a wasiyah. Wasiyah and bequest is to say, after I die, I want so and so, and I want such and such an animal to be slaughtered, etc. So, if the person had purchased an animal to perform Qurbani, let's say unfortunately he became extremely ill, he wasn't able to do on the 10th, on the 11th, 12th morning he passes away. So he has the animal, it's not been slaughtered, and he dies. Now that animal immediately becomes part of the inheritance. So the family members are not obliged to slaughter it. It belongs to them now. Now if they want, they can, if they all agree, now they can slaughter the animal and extend the reward to the deceased. If they want to sell the animal, that's totally up to them. It's totally up to them. However, if the person on whom Qurbani was compulsory dies after, so let's say he dies on the 13th or 14th, and he was too ill to make the Qurbani on 10th, 11th or so they didn't make Qurbani. Now it is necessary for him to give money equivalent to a goat in sadaqah, or at least to make a bequest before he dies that I was meant to perform Qurbani, but unfortunately it wasn't done. So now, as we've discussed before, once the days of Qurbani are over, then you can't slaughter the animal, give money equivalent to it. Now what if there were up to, let's say, 5, 6, 7 people who had a share in one large animal, a camel, a cow or something. And if they want to distribute the meat amongst themselves and do not want to grant the other permission to benefit from their share, then it's very important that their meat is weighed properly. So if there are up to 7 people in the animal, then they should be given 1/7 each, and it must be distributed equally. Whether it's 2 people or 3 people or 4 people, in proportion to their share, they should be given. However, many of the time it will be that the people are not really so bothered. For example, they're residing in England, 3, 4 brothers, and they have a big animal, a large animal slaughtered in India or elsewhere. So now that's fine. They may distribute the entire animal to the poor, to the friends, relatives. They're not so bothered of receiving their share. Also, it is important to divide and share, separate carefully the share of a person perform Qurbani due to a vow. For example, there are 7 people. If 6 are doing it for Qurbani purposes and the other is for a vow, then for the 6, that's for Qurbani purposes, that could be shared and that could be distributed anyhow if they wish. But that 1/7 which is for a vow, that can't be given anyhow, because that has to go to the poor and needy. So it's important that side, that share, that portion is separated and given to the poor and needy. Unless they decide, all the partners decide the entire animal, we're going to give it to the poor and needy, i.e. the meat of it. So it can't be used by anyone else with or without their consent. Because if it's an animal due to a vow, or as we said, jinaya, a penalty in Hajj, or after the days of Hajj and Qurbani, it's been slaughtered, then it needs to be given to the poor and needy. If a partner has a share in the big animal and he dies before Qurbani, and all the inheritors are sane and mature, then if they give their consent, the Qurbani will be valid on his behalf, and inshallah he'll receive the reward, and on behalf of the other 3 partners, 4 partners, 5 partners or so. However, if anyone is a minor nabaligh, or if even one partner, one heir, one inheritor of the deceased person says no, then the animal can't be slaughtered for Qurbani purposes. The entire Qurbani will be invalid otherwise, because one share of it is rightly associated to one of the heirs who has not given their explicit approval. Now, the following items from an animal are impermissible to consume. We're not allowed to consume them. Even from a halal animal, a cow, a camel, a sheep. Flowing blood, sexual organs, anus, glands, bladder, spleen, according to some marrow from the lower back up to the neck. Now the question is, what is the method of slaughtering the Qurbani animal? Now this could be Qurbani animal or any animal according to the Islamic laws and Islamic rituals. How must slaughtering be done? As we've said previously, it is mustahab, preferable for the person who is performing a Qurbani to do it with his own hands. That's if he can slaughter the animal properly. Otherwise, he will cause harm to the animal, and it's in his interest and the interest of the animal and the animal's welfare not to do it. Or at least be witness the sacrificing if he has delegated the responsibility to someone else. The slaughterer must be Muslim. Why? He will be able to proclaim the name of Allah while slaughtering. He will be well aware of the etiquette, of the laws, of the rituals of slaughtering. And on a side note, it's also very important that we know what the laws and the regulations of the country are, and if a person does hold a license. In other parts of the globe, it may well be permitted for a person to purchase an animal, to bring the animal at home, in the garden, to sacrifice the animal as they like, whenever they like. However, in certain countries, there are licenses, there are rituals, there are regulations. It's not permitted for anyone just to purchase an animal, live animal, and bring it to their home and their garden and slaughter it as they like. So there are slaughterhouses, there are people who have licenses, there are certain rituals that those places should undertake. There's rules for hygiene, etc. So that's important as well, that we fulfill and abide by those regulations. Now, some of these points are the etiquette of slaughtering the animal, and it shows the Islamic ethics are not only afforded to human beings, but even animals. Do not keep the animal hungry or thirsty before slaughtering. The animal should be provided all its rights. Do not treat the animal roughly whilst bringing into the place of slaughter. Unfortunately, some people may strangle the animal, may pull the animal, cause inconvenience to the animal. So as much as possible, the animal should be given a raha and ease and comfort, because it's also a being who has emotions, who has feelings, who feels pain. Do not delay in slaughtering after laying the animal down, because that's going to cause inconvenience to the animal, and it also has emotions, feelings, it'll feel frightened. So soon as it's laid down, then be quick, be swift in slaughtering the animal. Sharpen the knife. Again, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that إِذَا ذَبَحْتُمْ, when you slaughter an animal, then فَأَحْسِنُوا, then do in a beautiful manner. Do in a manner which doesn't cause harm to the animal. Sharpen the knife, because if it's a blunt knife, then it's gonna cause suffering to the animal. However, again, although the knife should be sharpened, not in front of the animal. Otherwise, this will be undue harm caused to the animal before it dies. And along with the fact that that could affect the blood, the circulation of blood in the animal, and how the blood leaves the body, and the purity or the quality of the meat therein. It also goes against the welfare of the animal, also the feelings and the emotions of the animal. Do not slaughter an animal in the presence of another animal. This is an important point, unfortunately sometimes neglected, that they should be set aside so no one animal witnesses the other. Again, it causes unnecessary harm to the animal. Do not render an animal unconscious by stunning it or shooting it in the head, even if it's not going to die. Why? Because this is highly disliked to cause the animal unnecessary suffering. Yes, it may well be that we may be able to slaughter the animals quicker, in less time, easily. However, it is makruh, it is highly disliked to cause the animal to go through and endure undue suffering. It is impermissible to consume an animal which happens to die because of this: stunning, a gunshot, a wound. However, having said that, fine, even after stunning or wound, a gunshot, if it is still breathing, if it is still alive, and then the slaughter recites Bismillah, then this animal cannot be rendered haram. It will be permissible to eat. But the problem is that you did a highly disliked act before you slaughter the animal. So it should be totally avoided, number one. Number two, that it may well be that if it's a weak animal, then the stunning may cause harm to the animal and cause it to die, particularly the younger and the small and the vulnerable animals. And sometimes there's no check on which animal is still living and which animal has died. It may possibly be that the animal has died without someone knowing, and then that is fed. So we should avoid stunning the animals also. Now comes a point where the person is about to slaughter the animal. So try and face the Qibla. Any religious obligation or any religious activity, an ibadah, act of worship, should be done facing towards the Qibla. It draws the barakah and blessings. Lay the animal on the left side in a way that the throat and the feet of the animal are towards the Qibla. So the animal is lying on the left side, and the throat upon which the knife will be applied, and the feet are facing towards the Qibla. Thereafter, the person should make the intention. It doesn't have to be said on the tongue, it could be in the heart as well. So it's not compulsory to make a verbal intention. It's not even necessary to name the person on whose behalf the Qurbani is being conducted. There are 7 different people in a large animal. They have different names. So it's not necessary, if this person is slaughtering, let's say 100 names, then for him to have 700 odd names and to say the names of each individual at the time of saying Bismillah Allahu Akbar. To simply make the intention of sacrifice at the time of purchasing the animal on behalf of someone will also suffice. There's no need to make explicit intention on their behalf at each junction. So it's not necessary to take the names of each partner sharing a portion of the big animal. In fact, the Qurbani can be made with a general intention. So we've laid the animal down, we've faced the throat and the feet towards the Qibla, and now it's better, although not fard or a wajib, to recite the dua. إني وجهت وجهي للذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا وما أنا من المشركين قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين اللهم منك ولك. So the slaughterer who will be slaughtering for a long time should make the effort of trying to learn the dua. However, if a person can't learn the Arabic, then at least have in mind the translation, that verily, O Allah, I've set my face truly and sincerely towards you, who created the heavens and the earth. I do not and shall never associate partners with you, Allah. My worship, my sacrifice, my living, my dying is for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. There's no partner to him, and with that I have been commanded to believe in him, not to associate any partners to him. And I am from amongst the first to submit to my Allah. O Allah, minka walaka. This sacrifice is from you, it's ordained from you, it's a command from you, and it's for you. It's in your name. Then the person must take the name of Allah or recite any dhikr, any remembrance of Allah. A supplicating praise will not suffice. So whether it's Allahu Akbar or Alhamdulillah. So a person may recite the following while slaughtering the animal. Bismillahi Allahu Akbar. Bismillah, to take the name of Allah, is wajib, it's necessary. Now to say Allahu Akbar explicitly, that's another sunnah. So Bismillahi Allahu Akbar, and the animal should be slaughtered. If the Bismillah is not said intentionally, then the whole animal will become unlawful. If it's forgetfully, then it's different. Now a single Bismillah uttered will not suffice for slaughtering of multiple animals. And apparently this is the practice in some places in Europe, elsewhere it could be as well, wherein they may utter the name of God, like some of the other faiths also, at the beginning of the day, at the time of slaughtering the first animal, but they assume that will suffice for all the other dozens and hundreds of animals that they'll be slaughtering throughout the day. That's not right. Bismillah, or Allah's name, should be taken upon sacrificing animal each time separately. Unless they're laid on top of each other and it's one single blow that causes them to die. So slaughter the animal with its feet facing towards the Qibla and with your right foot on its shoulder to ensure that the animal is under control, and one can slaughter it as easily as possible, as quick as possible. Now, how is a person going to slaughter? We've said the person will use a sharpened knife and slaughter the animal at the throat, below the protruding bone, which is below the chin and above where the chest begins. Swiftly and clearly cut the 4 vessels, at least 3 of the 4, the windpipe, the food pipe, and the 2 jugular veins on either side of the throat, with a sharp knife, so it causes ease to the animal. The slaughter will be valid even if any 3 of the 4 are cut, but 3 is a minimum. So out of the 4, any 3 at least must be cut. Do not cut the entire neck, otherwise it'll be makruh. To slaughter an animal from the nape is makruh, but is valid as long as the 4 vessels, or as long as the 3 vessels are cut. Now this is in regards to the other animals, and that is known as dhabah, dhalbaha, slaughtering. For camel, the sunnah practice is something known as nahar, nun hara, like Allah says, فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. Now it's sunnah to pierce the camel whilst not laying it down, but making it stand up, and to strike it from under the neck with a swift stab at the top part of the chest, close to the neck. Obviously, if a person does not have the experience, it'll be difficult. But for those who have this experience, they are able to do that. With a spear or a large knife, to break the 4 arteries and cause the blood to pour out. Because it's important that all the blood is drawn out and the animal is allowed to settle and to cool down, and thereafter it will be skinned, and thereafter it'll be cut. This is known as nahar. It is permissible but disliked to slaughter the animal in the same way as we slaughter cow or any other, i.e. lying it down and with the face and the throat and the feet towards the Qibla, and then to slaughter it. Better is to, whilst it should be standing up, then from under the neck to stab with a spear or large knife and to break the 4 arteries. Now a person may recite the dua after slaughtering. So before slaughtering, we said, Inni wajjahtu wajhiya lilladhi just slightly before we say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. After Allahumma taqabbalhu minni كما تقبلت من حبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ومن خليلك إبراهيم عليه السلام. Oh Allah, accept this sacrifice from me, just like you accepted it from your beloved Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and ومن خليلك, your best friend Ibrahim alayhi salam. May Allah's peace be on both of them. Do not skin, cut, or remove any limb of the animal before the body cools down completely. Why? It's important that the blood is drawn out, any impurity is removed. Similarly, if the person approaches a big or large animal close by before the body has cooled down, then the body parts may still move, and it may cause some accident to the person who comes close to the animal. So it's important, wait for some time, wait for the body to cool down, and thereafter the animal should be skinned, or any of the limbs should be cut or removed. Lastly, it's important that we know these etiquette in Islam, also the legal requirements as according to the law of the country one is residing in. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to understand the significance of Qurbani. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to understand the shara'i, the conditions, which animals are allowed, which animals are not allowed, how it should be done, when it should be done. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our sacrifices, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make these animals a means of our protection from any miseries in this world and the hereafter, and make it a means of us entering into Jannah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.